Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology. What's that? That's the study of books and reading and notebooks and writing mixed with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. Here, you'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how they can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebooking prompts around particular themes, and you'll even hear from authors and special guests who can fuel our reading and writing hearts and help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your host, and I like to think a walking permission slip to add more reading and writing to your days. Now, if you are listening to this in real time, then we are moving into the holiday season. I've had a couple of episodes recently around this holiday time, including one where I walk you through why you need a holiday notebook, and another on how we can use our notebooks as gratitude practices. Now, if you haven't taken a listen to those, you might want to get yourself in the bookish and notebookish holiday spirit. But along with the holiday season comes another kind of season: flu season, cold season, COVID season. Now, there are a lot of reasons why this happens to be the time of year where all of us seem to get sick, but generally, it is because a combination of factors. Our stress gets higher. There's a lot to think about, a lot to manage, a lot to juggle around the holidays. There are layers of challenges around celebrating holidays, getting together with friends and family you haven't seen, while positive could also have some challenges. So, overall, stress can be higher at this time of year. It's also the time where we eat a little bit differently, right? So, even the healthy of us end up enjoying and indulging in a bit of holiday food. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but that holiday food often comes with a little bit more sugar, which can dampen our immune systems. Related around this time with this stress, this different way of eating, our sleep can usually be impacted. And we know that sleep is essential to a healthy immune system. And so when you just think about these factors alone, not to mention the others that could come into play, well, it makes sense that our immunity is a bit lowered. So, what do we do at this time of year? Well, there's usually the big three that all of the gurus talk about. We need to sleep more, right? We need to regenerate our cells as we sleep, at least 8 full hours. We need to eat healthily. We need to cut out the sugar, cut out those prepackaged, overprocessed foods, and eat more whole foods like fruits and vegetables and natural carbohydrates. And we also need to move more. Moving our bodies helps keep things healthy, whether that's running or yoga or Pilates or dancing, whatever it is, keeping our body moving can help too. So, those are typically the three things we hear a lot of to keep ourselves healthy during this time. But you know it, I am going to add two more to that important list. And of course, you know what they are: reading and writing. Yeah, today I want to talk about the effects that reading and writing can have on our immune system, on our level of immunity, on how healthy we are. I've talked a lot about the benefits of reading and writing on this podcast: the physical benefits, the cognitive benefits, the mental and emotional benefits. But today I want to talk specifically how they relate to our immunity. And if we carve out more time for reading and writing during this upcoming season, then we could end up being healthier throughout it and at the end. It used to be an apple a day. Maybe now it's a chapter a day or a page a day. So let's think about the effects that reading and writing can have on our immune system. I want you to think about it in two different ways. Reading has been shown to have an indirect effect on our immune system, and I'll talk you through it. While writing has been found to have a little bit more direct impact on our immune system. And the exciting thing is that there's always more and more research coming out about this, and I love keeping up to date on it. So let's start with reading. Reading primarily has an indirect effect on our immune system. And it's an indirect effect because reading can soothe our physical body in multiple ways. That soothed physical body can then lower the amount of stress that it holds. And by lowering the amount of stress that it holds, it can actually boost our immune system. So do you see how there's this extra step in between? We read more, right? Reading more isn't a direct connection yet to improved immune system function, but if we read more and we soak up the impacts that it has on our physical body because of 5 reasons I'm going to talk to you about today, then it can impact our immune system. So, what are those 5 indirect ways that reading can boost our physical health, which can then lead to a more strengthened immune system? Well, in no particular order, number 1 is that continuous reading. And again, it's 6 minutes of reading a day at a bare minimum. But if you can get up to a 30-minute block, a 30-minute block of reading has a huge effect on your parasympathetic nervous system. So let's aim for those 30-minute blocks. When you do, although yes, it does start at 6 minutes, it just peaks at 30. When you do, 5 things happen. Number 1, you decrease your muscle tension. Yeah, it has been shown in research that when you read, you physically relax. Your clenched or tense muscles, your shoulders that hunch up to your ears, your hunched over back because you're kind of leaning inward and trying to protect yourself from everything that's coming at you. When you read and you allow yourself to read for that sustained block of time, you relax. Your shoulders come down a little bit from your ears. Your neck might relax a little bit. Your back might curve a little less. Of course, this depends on your reading position, but overall, it was found that getting lost in that book helps you to relax your physical body. Now, the second way that reading can help your physical body is by slowing your heart rate. And I want to talk about 2 and 3 together, slowing your heart rate and slowing your breathing. When we are busy, when we are stressed, when we are running, our heart rate is higher. Our breathing is quicker because we are on alert. We have a low level of stress coursing through our body, and we're thinking of our to-do list, and we're running from one thing to the next. But reading forces us to stop. It keeps us in the same place. And it forces us to relax a little bit. And so that slower heart rate and that slower breathing then acts as a signal to your system that we can relax, that we don't have to be in this fight or flight, whether that's a high level or a low level, all of the time. Now, number 4, our sleep improves. Now, there's 2 ways to look at this. If we are reading on a regular basis and we are regularly decreasing our muscle tension, slowing our heart rate and slowing our breathing and getting ourselves into that calmer sympathetic nervous system state, well, it makes sense that then our whole system would improve so that when it's time to sleep, we can. Our systems are able to calm down. And we know that if we have increased sleep, that has a huge effect on our level of immunity. So do you see how these indirect effects that come with reading, they just fuel the more direct effect on a nervous system? And number 5, the 5th way reading can help is that it occupies our mind. It's really hard to multitask when you are when you are reading. I've done it before. I've tried it before. Something always loses. You lose your spot in the story. You did something halfway when you were keeping your eye on the book, right? Generally, when we read, we have to be present. And when we are present, we are not worrying about the past. We are not focused in a negative way or a worried way about the future. Our mind is occupied. Our mind is occupied, and we can just be. So when you combine that together, decreased muscle tension, slower heart rate, slower breathing, a nice single focused occupied mind in the present, and increased sleep, you can see how that would then have an effect on our immune system, right? When we do that, we lower the stress on our physical body. Now, I'm not saying picking up a book is going to change all the stressful factors in your life. I wish it could, but it does lower the amount of stress that your cells are holding on to in your body. And if we have decreased stress, that means we have decreased cortisol because our brains are in charge of the chemicals they pump through our body. If we have lower stress, we have lower cortisol. And if we have lower cortisol, we have lower inflammation. And inflammation, as I have learned, is literally the root of all evil when it comes to illnesses and our immune system. So when you give yourself that time, starting with 6 minutes a day, hopefully moving up to 30, you start to reap the benefits on your physical body, which can then impact your level of immunity. I mean, if you needed another excuse to figure out more time to read during your day, I think right there, I just gave it to you. But what about writing? I talk about both impacts on reading and writing and our physical body. And so I want to talk about writing because research shows that it does have a more direct impact on your immune system. Yes, it does come with physical benefits. And pretty much all of those physical benefits that I talked about above could apply to writing. If we engage in these writing sessions, 15 to 20 minutes, a couple of times a month, if you really want to boost it, 15 to 20 minutes, 3 days in a consecutive row to give your body that real boost, you can decrease your muscle tension, slow your heart rate, slow your breathing, could lead to improved sleep, and it occupies your mind. But there's one thing that's a little bit different. In order to get the immunity benefits of writing, and let me just share with you the top 3 that the research shows first, and then I'll get to kind of the disclaimer that comes with it. Number 1, it has literally been shown that writing, and just those handful of times, if you want to really get the boost, do it consecutively over a couple of days. It has literally been shown to improve your immune system function. And when they researched markers of inflammation, we talked about inflammation just a second ago, it was found that people who wrote consistently, those markers were down. And specifically in patients who had rheumatoid arthritis, their levels of inflammation went down. That's huge. That is a direct effect on the immune system, on the levels of inflammation, and on the illness that could result. Now, another direct way that writing helps to boost your immunity is that writing has also been found to literally reduce your blood pressure. Right? When you have that combination of decreased muscle tension, slower heart rate, slower breathing, some of that stress is melting away, that was a direct factor, right? Lowered blood pressure, better health, better immunity. But another really amazing thing that was found in the research is that writing can actually improve your lung function and your liver function. And in studies, they found that patients with asthma had fewer uncontrolled asthmatic episodes and just had more general health overall. Those that wrote had those benefits over those that didn't. So you have the general impact of reading that then factors in to how your immune system functions. But with writing, they have found direct results on that immune system function in particular patients, on blood pressure, on lung function, on liver function. But I did say there was a catch. There is a catch because it is a particular kind of writing. The benefits of reading, that can be done on any book, anywhere, as long as your eyes are moving left to right, whether it's a physical book or a digital book, you're getting the benefits. Yes, you can still get some of those benefits with audiobooks because you are reading, but you've got to make sure you're not doing the audiobook while you're multitasking and doing something else and kind of losing that present effect. But with writing, it is a particular kind of writing that harnesses this healthy power on your immune system. And it's this kind of writing, expressive writing. It's not your emails, it's not your to-do list, it's not writing your next novel, it's not writing that's functional necessarily. It is writing that is expressive. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go become a creative writer and start writing poetry. Not at all. What this kind of expressive writing means is that we go deep into our thoughts and feelings on the page so that we can process them. We know that past trauma, big T, little t, we know that emotions and experiences, they have an effect on the cells in our physical body. That stress, that trauma impacts us on a cellular level. Working through some of that in an expressive writing practice where you go deep in your thoughts and feelings, it can help you release some of those emotions that you're storing in your body. It can help you process whatever it is that you were going through. And it just helps to move through those experiences as well. If you are very careful, right? Because I've talked about on the podcast before, just dumping all of your negative experiences onto a journal and hoping that they release from your body, it doesn't always work. I have found myself talking about the same negative thing over and over and over and over. And I hate when I look back at my morning page journals and I see some of the negativity there. Now, it's essential to get that negativity out, but the key factor in this research that I'm sharing with you on writing is that there was evidence of growth. The notebook was not just used to dump. The notebook was used to process and to work through and to leave the page a little bit better than we started. So maybe you're venting for all of your 2, 3, 4 pages that you're getting out of your system. But then at the end, you leave with something positive that this experience has brought you. Or maybe you use the page to rewrite how you want to think about it. I think one of the new phrases that kind of popped into my head for this is that we rewrite to rewire. We want our brains to think differently. Writing can help us do that. So it's really important that this kind of writing that impacts your immune system is something that you take up intentionally. It's expressive, it deals with those thoughts and feelings, but you have to make sure that it is something that you are moving through in a process of growth, right? So this is something maybe you do on your own, but maybe you do with a therapist. Maybe you do with a journal therapist or what's it called? The poetry therapist, right? Where they really are trained to use writing like this. You know, of course, after I dug into this research, I thought, okay, that's my next thing. I want to learn how to do that. And I'm happiest when I am always learning the next thing. So you never know. You never know what I might start talking about on here because this area fascinated me. That if we can move through our emotions on the page and not get stuck on them, then it not only impacts our mental health, but our immune health as well. So I know that because you're listening to this podcast, you already make time to read and write. Maybe you want to do more of it, but you're already pretty convinced that reading and writing is something that should fill your days. But I'm hoping now that you've read this, you realize that this practice, these practices, I should say, of reading and writing, they need to be front and center moving into this busy, challenging, wonderful time of the year. Not just because we want to, not just because they have positive effects in our lives, but they literally are boosting our immunity at a time that they need it, that we need it the most. So, what's next? I want to ask you 3 one-word questions so that you end this podcast with a plan for making sure that reading and writing is going to stay front and center during this season. Okay, so 3 simple one-word questions. Question number 1, when? Think right now. When will you prioritize reading, writing, or both in your busy days? Where can you start with just 6 minutes? Where could you boost up to 30 minutes of reading? Where could you find 15 to 20 minutes a couple of times a month to do this expressive kind of soul work writing? Even better, if you could find 3 days in a row to do those 15 to 20-minute blocks of times, then that has a more cumulative effect on your system. So I'm asking you, when? In the morning? Right before bed? Sneaking away on your lunch break? Putting something on your calendar that says meeting with Stephanie and going somewhere private and reading a book? I'm okay. I'm okay with you doing that. When? Right now, just say to yourself when you think you could make time for you and these practices. Okay, question 2, where? This seems probably like an easy one. Well, at home, but I want you to get specific. Where? At home, at work, outside, at the library, at the bookstore, at the coffee shop, and then take that location and drill down again. If it's at home, is it in your favorite comfy chair? Is it in bed? Is it at the kitchen table with your morning coffee? If it's at the bookstore, which one? Where will you sit? Right? If it's at the coffee shop, which one? Where will you sit? What will you drink? Okay, I want you to think about those details because the more details that you visualize in your mind of where you will be and what that will look like, the more apt you are to actually do it and follow through with it and carry through with it. So we've got when, we've got where, and now what? What will you read and what will you write? I just want you to follow one simple rule of thumb for reading. Read something that you enjoy. That's it. Don't worry about it. If it's the newest bestseller, great. If it's one of your favorite book club books, go for it. If it's a cozy holiday story, like I'll probably be reading, do that too. If it's the latest murder mystery, go for it. Don't overthink this. Just grab a book so that you can get started. And for writing, just show up to the page. You don't have to have a plan for what I'm going to write about. Next Tuesday, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write about this challenging thing that's happening at work, and I'm really going to just put all my deep thoughts and my feelings on the page. No, you don't have to do that. You can. You can pledge to yourself, I'm going to get through whatever this is, and I'm going to use writing to do it. But you can just show up to the notebook and at the top of the page put, here's what my body needs me to write about today. And that's it. Just start with that sentence and see where it goes. Those kinds of openers and sentence starters, they typically don't fail me. Because even if I'm not sure at the start what I'm going to write about, I might just keep writing. I don't know what I'm supposed to write about today, but maybe it's this. And something always comes out, right? There are always messages and intuitions and these little intuitive hits that we have of what we could put on the page. And if you just start with that generic prompt that allows you to listen to what that is, I'm usually surprised, but not surprised at the same time at what comes out on the page. So when, where, and what. Okay, 30 seconds. I want you to visualize the experience. First, let's start with reading. When are you reading? Where are you reading? And what are you reading? Picture yourself in that coffee shop with all of those wonderful smells and that coffee on the table and the scone right next to you after work because you want a little bit of a break between work and home. And on the table is that newest bestseller you've been trying to get your hands on for a while. Picture it, cement it. Now go to writing. When will you write? Where will you write? What will you write? Is it early in the morning before your house gets up? You've got that first wonderful cup of coffee sitting at your kitchen table with your bathrobe and your fuzzy slippers and a candle lit at the table. And what are you writing and what are you writing in? Is it your moleskin notebook with your favorite mechanical pencil, like it'll be for me? Are you writing about something on your heart or on your mind? Or can you just picture yourself writing across the page, "This is what my body needs me to know"? I promise just a couple minutes of visualization like that, it soaks into your cells and it makes you want to do it, which then hopefully lines everything up so that you do and that you can. Because we need it. We need it on our physical health and our immune system coming up into this season. So, again, as I said at the start of the episode, think of me as your walking permission slip, an even bigger one to read and write whenever and wherever and however you want to, as much as you want to, even more than usual as we go into this season. So I hope this research interests you just as much as it does me. I am always on the lookout for the newest research around the effects of reading and writing. And stay tuned. You might find an episode or two on this power of expressive writing and some resources and people and organizations that can help you get there. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Get Literate podcast, and I will see you again next week. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. Learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing, if you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow, and it builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.